Chapter 10. Cassie? Cassie, I know you're in there. Come on, open the door. Cassandra sighed, pushed herself out of bed, and went to the bedroom door. A week passed since the fight in the Dini Theater, and she'd still spoken little about it. She hadn't gone to see Stephanie since it happened, and refused any calls that Alfred said she had for her. She'd tried to come over twice, but Cassandra had, as politely as possible, asked to be left alone. This time, however, it was Tim knocking at the door. He asked, "Can I come in for a minute?" Cassandra nodded and opened the door wider. He made his way to the chair across from her bed and sat down. "Steph and me have done some talking lately." "All right," Cassandra said. "We established that even if I had a point to make, I could have been more tactful." He blew a long breath up at his face. "That you were maybe having a hard enough time right that moment." Cassandra asked, "What are you struggling with?" "What?" Tim said. "Stephanie said you're struggling with how you believe." "Why?" Tim sighed. "It means that although I was taught to believe in God, I don't know if I do anymore." Cassandra looked at him for a moment, taking in how this seemed to affect him before she asked, "Why?" Tim tapped his hands on the desk for a few seconds, as if to coordinate his thoughts. "There's a lot to say. Guess it all started with my mom." He paused for a moment as if Cassandra would question him. When she didn't, he pressed on. "My mom wasn't even raised Catholic. She was Jewish. You know what that is?" "I know the word," Cassandra replied. "Where's your Bible?" Tim asked. Cassandra pointed to the backpack seated in the corner. Tim unzipped it, drew out the book, and ran his fingers along the same 3/4 Stephanie had skipped past. "All this," he said, "this is Judaism. It's Christianity too, but it was Judaism first." When Cassandra continued to look confused, he continued, "It's not all that important to explain right now, but that's the basics, a common ancestry." He sat back down. "My dad was Catholic. Never made a big deal out of it, but apparently my grandparents did, and told him my mom needed to convert before they'd give their blessing to Mary. My mom took that well, I guess, because I never really heard her complain about it. So even though they both raised me Catholic, Mom saw to it I go through all the moments a nice Jewish boy was supposed to go through, too." He again considered his own words for a few moments before muttering, "I was the only kid in my class to have a First Communion and a bris." "I don't know what either of those are," Cassandra said. "Let's move on," Tim said. "My point was just that my mom was the most devoted person to her faith, both sides of her faith, that I ever knew. Dad never cared all that much about going to church or saying prayers. Mom had both the Star of David and a rosary in her bedside table at home. I've got both in my room right now." When Cassandra didn't respond, he pressed forward. "But sure enough, one business trip to Haiti later, and I received word that I don't have a mother anymore. It was the first time I ever questioned why God let something happen." Tim paused, tended briefly to his eyes, and took in a quick breath through his nose. "Tim," Cassandra began, "a year later I hear Black Mass killed the girl I love. But my dad is assassinated. My stepmom is lost with the rest of Bloodhaven. And you might remember, Connor. Steph came back, but still takes so much to believe in my mom's all-loving, all-good, all-powerful God, when all the rest came apart around me." After a moment of silence, Cassandra said, "I'm so sorry." "Don't be. Right now, it's what makes sense to me." Tim wiped at his eyes again. What does Bruce believe?" "He had a similar upbringing. Christian father, Jewish mother. She must have converted before she died, otherwise she wouldn't be buried like she is. He's never told me how that affected his life. I don't know, Cass. You want the really honest answer? I think Bruce has about 100 plans drawn up for how to take out God if he exists and gets on his bad side." He chuckled a little and hoped he'd broken the tension, but Cassandra did not react. "Bruce isn't a good person to ask these questions about. Ask me about Huntress, Batwoman, Dick. Maybe not Dick. He definitely believes things, but there's Roma tradition in there too. I'm not the guy who should be talking about it." "Why tell me this?" Cassandra said. "Why tell me your story?" "Because you've only experienced this so many ways," Tim said. "I know you talked to the old Monsignor." He stopped and chuckled a little. "If he knew you were my sister, he'd probably tell you to shout at me to start coming to church again. Anyway, you've heard from him, you've heard from Steph, and you've heard from some whack jobs in animal masks, because I'm sure Bruce didn't tell you anything. He told me it was my decision, Cassandra said. Yeah, close enough. My point is, Cass, you're going to get a lot of different reactions if you talk faith with us. And sometimes what we're experiencing most closely is nut jobs and extremists. He put a hand on her shoulder. I just want you to know what you're getting into. None of us thought any differently of you before you started looking into all this. Cassandra gave Tim a long look before she said, I didn't do this for any of you. You were doing it for yourself then? Tim asked, and Cassandra nodded. Yes, she said. What the Monsignor and Stephanie told me. Ideas based on forgiveness and compassion. I like those a lot. But you were living that way anyway, Tim said. You're one of the most hopeful, strong-willed people I know. Bruce even says you're less willing to take a life than he is. Maybe. Maybe I wanted to belong with others. You don't feel that with the rest of us? Tim asked, as though he was sure he already knew the answer. It isn't that, Cassandra said. Maybe you don't know why you want to keep trying all this, Tim suggested. There's a lot of things it could be, and maybe you should try to identify your real motivations before you dig any deeper. Maybe you'll find what you're looking for, maybe you won't. Either way, some focus might do you some good. When Cassandra didn't say anything, Tim gave her a last sad smile before he turned to exit the room. Before he reached the door, she said, Tim, and he turned back to her. Maybe I just wanted to be born for another reason. He didn't respond immediately, so she continued. Made to be a weapon. Be my father's perfect blade. But God made Adam to be a friend. That's what Stephanie said. And made Mary to raise his son. Not tools, just loved ones. She started to clutch herself, and a hand quickly cleared wet from her eyes. Maybe that's what I am. Tim stepped back in and laid a hand on her back for a second before he pulled her in for a hug. You were never that to us. And no matter what you do, you're always going to be Cassandra. Do things my way, Steph's way, Bruce's way, whatever. I promise that won't change. Thank you. Thank you, Cassandra managed to say, before he pulled her in for another moment. I'll let you think about all that. Tim slipped free and headed towards the door again. But you should probably get in touch with Steph again soon. I'll let her know you're all right, but she's been worried about you. Cassandra nodded as he left, and took another long, hard look at the book. What was it she was really looking for? And how sure could she be she would find it?